The rain was falling hard the night the mansion gate closed behind her, and Oma Injeri stood still for a moment, one hand on her stomach, the other holding a small cloth bag that carried her whole life. She did not know yet that this night would break many hearts, not just hers. She did not know that one cruel decision made by a powerful man would grow like a shadow and return years later to destroy everything he loved. All she knew was that she had nowhere to go, and the child inside her moved gently, as if asking a question she could not answer. Oma had come to Lagos 3 years earlier from a small village near Kumasi. She was only 19 then, thin, quiet, and hopeful. When she arrived at the tall white mansion of Kofi Mensah, she thought she had stepped into another world. The floors shone like water, the air smelled of flowers, and the lights never went out, even at night. Kofi Mensah was one of the richest men in West Africa. People said his name with fear and respect. He owned banks, factories, and lands that stretched farther than Oma had ever walked in her life. To work in his house was seen as luck, even if the work was heavy and the pay small. Oma worked from sunrise to midnight. She cleaned, cooked, washed, and stayed silent. Silence was her shield. She learned quickly that in that house, questions were dangerous. The other workers kept their heads low. They whispered stories in the kitchen about people who angered Kofi and were sent away without warning. Oma listened but never spoke. She believed that if she worked hard and stayed invisible, she would survive. Kofi Mensah rarely noticed her. When he walked through the house, people stepped aside like shadows. His voice was calm but cold, and when he spoke, no one argued. He believed weakness was a disease and mercy was a lie poor people told themselves to sleep at night. He often said that success came only to those who crushed their feelings. His wife, Esi, followed him like a quiet echo. She wore fine clothes and expensive jewelry, but her eyes were always tired. She saw many things but spoke very little. Months passed, then years. Oma grew used to the mansion and its rules. But one thing she did not plan for began to change her body slowly. At first, she thought it was sickness from long hours and little rest. Then her clothes became tight. Her stomach grew round and firm. Fear entered her heart like cold water. She knew what this meant. In that house, an unmarried pregnant maid was not just a problem, she was a shame. The father of the child was a truth Oma locked deep inside her chest. It was a mistake born from loneliness and a moment of weakness. She told herself every night that she would survive it alone. She hid her body with loose clothes and worked even harder. Each step she took felt heavy, but she forced herself to smile when spoken to. She prayed quietly, asking only for time. Time betrayed her. One afternoon, as the sun burned hot outside, Oma was called to the main hall. Her heart beat fast. Kofi Mensah stood there with his arms crossed. His eyes were sharp, like he had already decided her fate. Esi sat on the sofa, her face pale. 2 other maids stood nearby, staring at the floor. "What is this?" Kofi asked, pointing at Oma's stomach. Oma opened her mouth, but no words came. Her knees shook. She slowly knelt down, tears filling her eyes. "I asked you a question," Kofi said, his voice calm but dangerous. I am pregnant, sir," Oma whispered. The room went silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Kofi's face hardened. "In my house," he said. "You bring this shame into my home." Oma bowed her head. "Please, sir. I did not plan it. I can still work. I only ask for..." "Enough," Kofi said. "You think I built this name so servants can disgrace me?" Esi looked at Oma, her lips trembling, but she said nothing. Kofi stepped closer. "Pack your things. Leave before nightfall." Oma's tears fell freely now. "Sir," please. I have nowhere to go. I will leave after the child is born. I beg you. Kofi laughed softly, a sound without warmth. Begging does not change rules. Get out. No one defended her. The house that once felt bright now felt like a prison pushing her out. Oma stood up slowly, her legs weak. She went to her small room, packed her few clothes, and walked back to the gate. The guards did not look at her. The gate opened, then closed with a loud metal sound. That sound followed her into the rain. As Oma walked away from the mansion, each step felt like goodbye to safety, to hope, to life as she knew it. She did not look back. Inside her, the child moved again. Oma placed her hand on her stomach and whispered, "I am sorry." What she did not know was that this child carried a truth that would one day return to that mansion, knocking louder than any gate, demanding a price no amount of money could pay. If this story has already touched your heart, stay with us till the end. Subscribe to this channel for more African stories where every choice has a consequence, and every silence has a cost. Oma did not remember how long she walked after leaving the mansion. The rain washed over her face, mixing with her tears, hiding her pain from the world. Cars passed by without slowing down. People hurried under umbrellas, careful not to touch her. In Lagos, everyone had their own trouble, and a pregnant maid with a small bag was just another shadow on the road. By the time the rain stopped, the sky was already dark. Oma's legs felt like wood. Her back ached, and her stomach tightened with a sharp pain that made her stop and bend forward. She leaned against a wall and breathed slowly, afraid. She had never been alone in the city before. Fear wrapped around her like a cold cloth. She found a small open shop and sat on the step. The owner looked at her once and turned away. Oma rested her head on her knees and thought of the mansion. Just that morning, she had been cleaning the dining table where rich men laughed and talked about money. Now she had nothing. Not even a place to sleep. Hunger came next. Her stomach growled, and she felt dizzy. She had not eaten since morning. She reached into her bag and found only a piece of dry bread she had saved. She broke it in half and ate slowly, giving the rest to the child inside her in her mind. "Be patient," she whispered. "We will survive." But survival was not easy for someone with no money, no family, and a growing belly. That night, Oma slept sitting up near a closed shop. The ground was cold. Every sound made her jump. She hugged her bag tightly, afraid someone would steal even that. In her sleep, she dreamed of her village, of her mother calling her name, of green trees and warm sunlight. When she woke up, the city noise rushed back in, loud and careless. The next day, she tried to find work. She walked slowly from street to street, asking shops if they needed help. When people saw her stomach, their faces changed. Some shook their heads. Some looked away. A woman at a food store laughed and said, "Who will hire a pregnant girl?" Those words cut deeper than hunger. By afternoon, the pain in Oma's body became stronger. Her head felt light, and her steps grew weak. She reached a busy road and tried to cross, but the world suddenly spun. The sounds of cars faded. She felt herself falling. When Oma opened her eyes, she was lying on the ground, surrounded by strangers. A woman was holding her head. "She's breathing," the woman said. "Call a taxi." Oma tried to speak, but her mouth was dry. Fear filled her again. She thought of the baby. She placed her hand on her stomach. The movement was faint but there. Relief washed over her like warm water. She was taken to a small clinic. The walls were old, and the smell of medicine was strong. A doctor came in, a middle-aged man with tired eyes. His name was Kojo. He spoke gently, unlike the people she had met since leaving the mansion. You are lucky, he said after checking her. Stress and hunger almost caused you to lose the child. Oma's tears returned. I have no money, she whispered. Please, let me go. Dr. Kojo looked at her for a long moment. He had seen many stories like hers. Poor women broken by powerful people. He sighed. Rest for a while, he said. We will talk later. While Oma rested, far away in the mansion, Kofi Mensah continued his life as if nothing had happened. He sat in his office, signing papers, making deals. The firing of a maid was a small thing to him, like sweeping dust away. His wife, ESI, watched him from across the room. Her heart was heavy, but her mouth stayed closed. That evening, Kofi's son, Yo, returned home. He was young, handsome, and careless. He lived a life of parties and fast cars. As he walked through the hall, he noticed Oma was missing. Where is the quiet girl? He asked one of the maids. The maid hesitated. She was sent away today, sir. Yo frowned. Sent away. Why? She was pregnant. Yo's face went pale. For a moment, the world stopped for him. He turned away quickly before anyone could see his fear. He went to his room and locked the door. His heart beat loudly. He sat on his bed, his hands shaking. That cannot be, he whispered to himself. But deep inside, he knew the truth. He remembered a night of weakness, a moment he had already buried under laughter and wine. He had promised himself it meant nothing. Now it meant everything. He did not go to his father. He did not go to his mother. He did nothing. Silence, like a heavy blanket, covered his guilt. He told himself the maid would disappear, just like all small problems did in his father's world. Back at the clinic, Oma was discharged with no money and nowhere to go. Dr. Kojo gave her a small paper with an address. Go to Accra, he said. Find this woman. Her name is Mama Abina. She helps people like you. Oma held the paper like a treasure. She bowed her head in thanks. God bless you, she said. As she stepped back into the city, weak but breathing, fate began to pull its threads tighter. A fired maid, a silent son, and a cruel billionaire were now tied together by a truth that refused to stay buried. If you feel the pain in Oma's journey, do not leave yet. Stay with us till the end, and subscribe for more African stories where the forgotten always return. The journey to Accra felt longer than the road itself. Oma sat in the back of an old bus, her body pressed between strangers, her bag on her lap, her hand resting on her stomach. Every bump on the road sent pain through her back, but she stayed silent. She had learned that the world did not stop for pain. Outside the window, towns passed by like dreams she could not touch. She did not know what waited for her in Accra, only that she could not return to Lagos. When the bus finally stopped, the air felt different. It was warmer, slower. Oma stepped down carefully and looked around. Accra was busy, but not as harsh as Lagos. People talked louder, laughed more. Still, she felt like a leaf in the wind. She found the address Dr. Kojo had given her after asking many people. It led her to a small wooden house near a crowded market. The smell of roasted corn and fresh fish filled the air. Outside the house sat an old woman with deep lines on her face and strong eyes. She looked at Oma once and understood everything. You are late, the woman said softly. But you came. Oma fell to her knees and cried. The woman, Mama Abina, helped her inside without asking questions. She gave her water and food. That night, Oma slept on a mat on the floor, but it felt safer than any bed she had known since leaving the mansion. Life with Mama Abina was hard but human. Every morning, the old woman went to the market to sell vegetables. Oma helped when she could, though her body was heavy and tired. Some days, the pain became sharp, and Mama Abina would make her lie down. "You must keep your strength," Mama Abina said. "This child will need you." At night, when the city quieted, Oma talked to her stomach. She told the baby stories of her village, of rivers and mango trees, of a life where people smiled without fear. But sometimes her voice broke, and she would turn away so Mama Abina would not see her tears. The months passed slowly. Oma's body grew weaker, but her love for the child grew stronger. She refused to speak about the father. When Mama Abina asked, Oma shook her head. "That story will only bring pain," she said. "Let it sleep." One evening, the pain came suddenly. It was stronger than before. Oma cried out, and Mama Abina rushed her to the same small clinic where Dr. Kojo now worked in Accra. Fate had brought them together again. Dr. Kojo recognized Oma immediately. His face filled with worry. "You are not strong enough," he said. "But we will do our best." The night was long. Oma screamed, prayed, and begged. She thought of the mansion, of the gate, of the rain. She thought of the man who fired her and the son who stayed silent. When dawn finally broke, a baby's cry filled the room. "It is a boy," Dr. Kojo said. Oma cried harder than she had ever cried before. She held the baby close and felt a love so deep it scared her. She named him Kwame, because he was born on a Saturday, a day of new beginnings. But joy did not stay long. Oma's body had given everything it had. Days after childbirth, she grew weak. Fever burned through her. Dr. Kojo did what he could, but medicine was costly. One afternoon, while Kwame slept beside her, Oma asked Mama Abina for paper and pen. Her hands shook as she wrote slowly. The words were simple, heavy with truth. She wrote about her life in the mansion, about fear, about silence. She wrote the name of the father but folded the paper before anyone could see it. "This is for my son," she said. "If I do not wake up." Mama Abina held the letter with trembling hands. "You will wake up," she said. But her eyes were wet. Oma closed her eyes that night and dreamed again of her village. This time, her mother stood at the river, smiling. Oma reached out. In Lagos, life moved forward. Kofi Mensah's businesses grew. Newspapers praised him. His son laughed at parties, but his laughter was empty. Sometimes, late at night, he saw a pregnant girl in his dreams, walking away in the rain. He never asked where she went. Back in Accra, Oma opened her eyes in the morning. She was alive, but something inside her had changed. She was thinner, quieter. She looked at Kwame and smiled, a small smile full of pain and promise. The child slept peacefully, unaware that his life had already been shaped by cruelty, silence, and strength. The letter lay hidden under Mama Abina's mat, waiting for the day it would speak louder than any voice. Stay with this story till the end. Subscribe for more African tales where hidden truths never stay buried forever. Time does not ask permission before it moves. It passes quietly, carrying pain, hope, and forgotten promises with it. By the time Kwame learned to walk, Oma had already learned to hide her suffering behind a soft smile. Her body never fully healed after childbirth. Some days she woke up strong enough to work in the market with Mama Abina, and other days she lay on the mat, staring at the roof, breathing slowly as if each breath was counted. Kwame grew up among voices of the market. He learned words from traders calling customers, laughter from children running barefoot, and songs from old radios playing near food stalls. He was a bright child, curious and kind. His eyes followed everything. When he spoke, people listened. Mama Abina often said, "This boy carries light, even when the world is dark." Oma watched her son closely. She lived for him. Every coin she earned went to food or school books. She never bought new clothes for herself. At night, when Kwame slept, she sometimes pressed her hand to her chest, feeling a deep pain that came and went like a warning. But she never complained. She feared hospitals. She feared leaving her child alone more. In Lagos, Kofi Mensah's name grew bigger. His face appeared on billboards. People called him a great man, a builder of nations. His mansion grew taller walls and stronger gates. Inside that house, however, something was breaking quietly. His wife Esai moved like a ghost. She knew more than she spoke. Sometimes she remembered Oma's eyes on the day she was fired. Those eyes followed her into her sleep. Yo, now older, carried his guilt like a heavy stone. He avoided the servants. He avoided quiet rooms. He drowned himself in noise and pleasure. But silence always returned. He often thought of the child that might exist somewhere, calling him father without knowing his name. Still, he did nothing. Fear of his father was stronger than his courage. Years passed. Kwame started school. He was small for his age but sharp. He learned fast and asked many questions. When other children talked about their fathers, Kwame stayed quiet. One day, he asked Oma, "Where is my father?" Oma froze. She smiled gently and said, "He is far away." That was all. Kwame did not ask again, but the question stayed inside him like a seed. Oma's health grew worse. She coughed often. Her hands shook when she tried to lift heavy things. Mama Abina begged her to see a doctor, but Oma refused. "If I go and do not come back," she said softly, "who will hold my son?" One night, during the Harmattan season, Oma's breathing became shallow. She woke Mama Abina with a weak call. Kwame slept beside her, holding her hand. Mama Abina felt Oma's forehead and knew the truth. At the clinic, Dr. Kojo shook his head slowly. "She waited too long," he said. Oma looked at him and smiled faintly. "Please," she whispered, "take care of my son." Before dawn, Oma Injeri closed her eyes for the last time. There was no loud cry, no big crowd. Only Mama Abina's tears and a small boy shaking his mother, asking her to wake up. Oma was buried quietly. The market women came, bringing food and tears. Kwame stood still, not fully understanding death, only feeling a deep emptiness where his mother's voice used to be. That night, Mama Abina took out the hidden letter. She read it slowly, her hands shaking. The truth inside burned her heart. She folded it again and placed it back under the mat. "This child will know one day," she whispered. Years later, Kwame grew into a young man with sharp eyes and a calm voice. He studied hard, often by candlelight. His teachers saw something special in him. A scholarship came, small but enough to carry him forward. He left Accra to study, carrying his mother's memory with him like a shield. In Lagos, fate prepared another meeting. Kofi Mensah announced a new company project. Yo, now restless and empty, returned home more often. The past waited patiently. The silence that once protected the powerful was beginning to crack. And when it broke, it would cut deep. If you feel the weight of this journey, stay with us till the end. Subscribe to this channel for African stories where the truth always finds its voice. Kwame returned to Lagos as a young man with a quiet strength that came from struggle. The city that once swallowed his mother now opened its doors to him, not with kindness, but with opportunity. His scholarship had carried him through school, and his hard work had carried him further. He spoke little, listened more, and learned fast. People respected him without knowing why. On his first day at the tall glass building of Mensah Holdings, Kwame stood in the lobby and felt a strange heaviness in his chest. The name on the wall pulled at something deep inside him. He did not know why. He only knew that his mother's stories had always stopped when the rich were mentioned. Kwame started as a junior assistant. He worked harder than anyone else. He arrived early, left late, and never complained. Older workers noticed him. Some helped him quietly. Others watched with envy. He did not chase power. He chased knowledge. One afternoon, an older man walked into his office and stopped suddenly. It was Dr. Kojo. Time had added lines to his face, but his eyes were the same. He stared at Kwame as if seeing a ghost. "It is you," Dr. Kojo whispered. Kwame stood up, confused. "Sir, do I know you?" Dr. Kojo said slowly. "Your mother," he said. "Oma." The name hit Kwame like thunder. He felt the room spin. "You knew her?" Dr. Kojo nodded, his eyes wet. "She was brave. Braver than anyone in that house ever was." They talked in low voices. Dr. Kojo told him about Lagos, about the firing, about the rain. Kwame listened without blinking. When the truth came out, his hands clenched into fists. "And my father?" Kwame asked quietly. Dr. Kojo hesitated. "He lives here," he said. That night, Kwame walked the city until his feet hurt. Anger, sadness, and confusion fought inside him. Mama Abina's letter burned in his pocket. He had carried it for years, unopened, waiting for the right time. Days later, fate moved faster. Kwame was called to a meeting. When he entered the room, his breath caught. Kofi Mensah sat at the head of the table. Power filled the room. Beside him sat Yo. Yo looked up and froze. His face drained of color. He knew. He had always known. The meeting ended quickly for Kwame. Yo followed him outside, his voice shaking. "We need to talk." They stood alone on the balcony. Yo's eyes were full of fear. "I am sorry," he said. "I was weak." Kwame said nothing. He pulled out the letter and handed it to him. "Read," he said. Yo read slowly. By the end, tears ran down his face. "I wanted to tell him," he whispered. "I was afraid." Kwame turned away. "Fear killed my mother," he said. The truth reached Kofi Mensah like a storm. "When you told him," the billionaire laughed at first. Then he saw the letter. His hands shook. His heart stopped racing and started sinking. The maid. The pregnancy. The child. His grandson. He remembered the gate. The rain. The begging he ignored. For the first time in his life, money had no power. Kofi tried to reach Kwame. He offered apologies, money, names, everything he owned. Kwame listened once, then stood up. "You fired my mother," he said calmly. "Now you cannot hire me with tears." News leaked. People whispered. The perfect image cracked. Kofi's nights grew sleepless. His house felt empty. The truth was no longer hidden. And the final price was waiting. Stay with this story. Subscribe and remain till the end. The final chapter will change everything. The mansion felt different the day Kofi Mensah realized money could no longer protect him. The walls were still tall, the floor still shone, but the silence inside was heavy, full of voices from the past. Kofi sat alone in his office, holding the letter Oma had written years ago. He had read it many times, yet each word cut deeper than before. In the letter, Oma did not curse him. She did not ask for revenge. She only wrote about fear, about being treated like dirt, about carrying a child while begging for mercy that never came. She wrote that she forgave him, but that forgiveness did not erase pain. That was the part that broke him. Kofi called Kwame again and again. Kwame did not answer. He avoided the mansion, avoided the name Mensa. He focused on his work, but his heart was heavy. Knowing the truth did not bring peace. It brought a deep sadness that sat quietly inside him. Yo tried to fix things in his own way. He followed Kwame one evening and stood in front of him. "Let me help you," Yo said. "I can give you everything." Kwame looked at him with tired eyes. "You already took everything," he said. "My mother died waiting." Those words stayed with Yo like a curse. He began to drink heavily. He could not sleep. He saw Oma in his dreams, holding a child and walking into the rain. Guilt ate him from the inside. The story leaked to the public. At first, people did not believe it. Then proof appeared. The letter. Old workers speaking. Dr. Kojo telling his part. Newspapers that once praised Kofi now questioned him. Billionaire accused of cruelty, the headlines read. Business partners pulled away. Friends stopped visiting. Kofi's wife, ESI, finally spoke after years of silence. "I saw her pain," she said one night. "And I said nothing. We are both guilty." Kofi's health began to fail. The strong man who once feared nothing now woke up shaking. Doctors warned him, but he ignored them. He wanted to see Kwame one last time. On a quiet evening, Kofi went to the old gate of the mansion. The same gate that closed behind Oma years ago. He stood there for a long time, staring at the road. He imagined her standing there, pregnant, scared, alone. For the first time, he cried openly. Kwame never came. A few days later, Kofi collapsed in his office. The man who controlled thousands of lives died alone, surrounded by papers and wealth that meant nothing in the end. His death was quiet. No grand goodbye. No forgiveness spoken. The funeral was large, but cold. Many people came out of habit, not love. Kwame did not attend. He stood at the airport instead, holding a small bag. Mama Abina stood beside him. "Are you sure?" she asked. Kwame nodded. "I need a place where my mother's pain cannot reach me every day." Before boarding, Kwame opened the letter one last time. He whispered, "I did not become like them, Mama. I promise." The plane took off. Africa grew smaller below him. The past stayed behind, but its lesson stayed alive. You stood at the gate of the mansion after the funeral, alone. The house was silent. He finally understood that some mistakes cannot be repaired, only remembered. Mama Abina returned to the market. She told children Oma's story, not with anger, but with truth. "Kindness is richer than gold," she would say. "And cruelty always returns." The mansion gates were closed again, this time forever. But this time, no one stood outside begging. The power had ended where it began. And this is the truth the world forgets too often. Being rich does not make you great. Power without mercy creates graves, not legacies. Treating people like nothing will one day leave you with nothing. If this story touched your heart, do not keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more African stories that speak truth, pain, and lessons we must never forget. Stay with us, because every story carries a warning, and every silence has a cost.